away from her, you...
The M577 Armoured Personnel Carrier was a low-cost, lightweight, multi-role vehicle built to satisfy the United States Colonial Marines Marine 70 program that called for rapid response and deployment. This program imposed strict weight and size limits as the vehicle was required to be carried into combat aboard a dropship such as the UD-4L Cheyenne. The boxy vehicle's 8.5 metre long chassis was lightweight and sturdy thanks to being made from bonded titanium, with a thin outer hull latched and bonded to it. The 2mm thick light alloy plates that made the outer layer of the hull were welded to each other but not to the chassis in order to prevent fatigue from piezoelectric effects associated with an alloy titanium interface. Layered behind the alloy skin were 4mm thick boron carbide plates, coated with 2mm of polymer resin on their outside face. This polymer helped to prevent cracks or shattering during regular use, but also provided limited ablative protection against pulsed lasers. The innermost layer of the hull armour was a 3mm thick spall liner made from woven Venlar, a fire-resistant polymer. To provide protection against forged fragment mines exploding beneath the vehicle, the crew compartment's floor cavity was packed with 5 cm of protective foam. The thin hull armour provided low protection against large vehicle-mounted weapons, but was proof against shrapnel, small arms fire and low-velocity armour-penetrating ammunition such as rifle-fired grenades. Most importantly, it kept the vehicle's combat weight low at 14,500 kg, staying below the critical 15,000 kg limit imposed upon it for use with shuttles and dropships. One major downside of the APC's shape and flat sides was its high radar signature. Radar-absorbent materials were integrated into its outer skin in a partially successful attempt to rectify this issue. Other stealth features of the vehicle included laser-absorbent hull paint to protect against LiDAR, and cooling elements arranged in chaotic patterns and stripes below its skin. When active, these acted as infrared camouflage by breaking up the vehicle's shape, reducing the chances of positive identification. The M577 was propelled by 4 direct-drive in-wheel motors inside its 159cm diameter wheels. Though a wheeled vehicle had less rugged off-road performance than one using tracks, using wheels made the vehicle lighter, more reliable, and gave it a top speed of 150 km/h on flat ground. The tyres were armoured against small arms fire and splinters, and were all pressure controlled by a central regulation system that allowed the driver to adjust the vehicle's ground pressure for soft terrain. Each of the direct drive rotodynamic transaxle assemblies were connected to the chassis via an all-in-one pivot shock component, which contained both the steering for the wheel as well as its suspension. Thanks to a fully active hydro-pneumatic suspension system, it could raise its ground clearance from 22 cm to a maximum of 52 cm for improved off-road mobility and obstacle climbing. Each of the 4 motors, as well as the rest of the APC, were powered by a bank of batteries located in the rear of the vehicle. These were kept charged by an Arco Continental R370 micro gas turbine capable of outputting 286 kilowatts of power and could be run on a variety of chemical fuels, including diesel, biofuel, compressed natural gas and liquid petroleum gas. A single charge of the batteries gave the M577 a range of 140 km, which was extended to 580 km through being charged by the turbine. The APC had a surprisingly spacious interior. This was due to another requirement of the Marine 70 program, which called for each M577 to be able to carry sufficient ammunition and supplies for up to 3 days of fighting, as well as its standard loadout of weapons and equipment. However, this made the interior of the vehicle somewhat cramped, so the requirement was often waived, especially in areas where resupply was readily available. Each of the 12 passenger seats were equipped with snap and lock yoke harness restraints for orbital combat drops, as were the seats for the 2-person crew, the driver and section commander. There was also an optional gunner station directly behind the driver's position at the front of the vehicle. The driver had a limited forward view through a quartz armoured crystal window, as well as periscopes to the front and sides. On the port side of the crew compartment, opposite the main entry door, was the Tactical Operations Center. It was from here that the section commander maintained contact with deployed Marines Marines via video and audio links, as well as keeping track of their biometrics and location. Data and maps from local sources could also be integrated with this system. This expansive ops center allowed a commander to know precisely what was going on, and to keep their team appraised of the tactical situation. This was supplemented by a set of multifunction displays for all crew stations that linked into the vehicle sensors, providing the crew with a display of the area around the vehicle. The sensor cluster was co-located with the main white light and infrared searchlight mounted atop the vehicle, and provided a 260-degree view to the front and sides of it. The cluster included a turreted thermal imager, television optics with up to 20 times magnification, a UV detector, and an ultrasonic motion tracker. These sensors were also linked with the M577's active defense system, which automatically deployed chaff and flare decoys from a dispenser on the rear of the vehicle, which could also release a cloud of particulate smoke to block ranging or pulsed lasers and to obscure the vehicle's location. A fire control jammer was also installed, which was capable of spoofing incoming millimeter wave tracking radars, though the power available for this system was limited. Further boosting the vehicle's powerful sensor data was a pair of its own millimeter wave targeting radars, mounted in the unit's 2 weapon turrets. These radars could track targets handed off to them by the main sensor cluster, or use ground mapping and search functions to find targets themselves, with an effective range for tracking person-sized targets of up to 3 kilometers in open terrain. In order to provide heavy fire support against threats from all domains, the M577 was heavily armed for a vehicle of its weight class. The first of these weapons was a pair of Republic Electric RE700 20mm Gatling cannons mounted to a rotating cupola beside the driver's position, giving it a 120-degree arc of fire covering the APC's front. These synchronized weapons were both supplied from a 1700-round multi-feed dispenser immediately below the turret, which carried 3 types of round: high explosive armor-piercing, and beehive anti-personnel flechettes. All rounds were caseless and included no propellant, as the weapon system instead used a hypergolic binary propellant it sprayed on each round once it was in the chamber. While weapon systems using binary propellants were rare at this caliber, it was selected for use on the M577 as it provided substantial weight, rate of fire, and reliability advantages. The second set of weapons installed on the vehicle was a pair of roof-mounted missile launch bays, carrying a total of 12 Lockmart 2-inch DSGR smart missiles. These precision strike multi-role weapons integrated an advanced guidance system with legacy Free-Fire AT missiles, drastically increasing their effectiveness. The guidance package included target handoff, enhanced on-the-rail testing, and a laser coding from the M577's Tactical Operations Center or Gunner's Seat, and provided high precision strike capability against targets in close proximity to civilian or friendly assets, whilst limiting collateral damage. Finally, the APC's main weapon was housed within a turret with self-contained ammunition and power supply, mounted to a rail track on the vehicle's aft. Geared electric motors moved the turret along the rail between the roof and a stowed position on the rear, greatly reducing the vehicle's maximum height and allowing it to be stowed within a shuttle or dropship payload bay. Travelling with the turret in the stowed position was not advised, as this could lead to it being coated with mud and debris from the vehicle's rear wheels. 3 different armaments saw service as the APC's main weapon within this turret, starting with a pair of 20MW Boyers PARS 1250 phased plasma cannons mounted on the M577A. These weapons had a multi-stage firing sequence, beginning with a homopolar fast discharge generator firing a laser that ionized a trail in the atmosphere. This trail was then charged by an electromagnetic coil to create a solenoidal magnetic tunnel, into which 5-gram cadmium telluride pellets were fired. The laser then fired a second time to vaporize the pellet before it was accelerated by the magnetic coil to a speed of 5,000 meters per second. The magnetic tunnel ensured the considerable thermal and kinetic energy of the plasma impacted on a focused point, with a maximum range of 4 kilometers, dependent on ambient atmospherics. The system was powered by a 6MW hydrogen fuel cell, which could supply enough energy to fire up to 3,000 times before needing to be refueled, far more than the combined 2,000 round of ammunition the weapon carried. However, the 2 cannons were required to alternate their fire due to the high power demands of the system, leading to a maximum fire rate of only 40 rounds per minute with adequate cooling. Mounted on the M577A2 were two Republic Dynamics M2025 40MW free electron lasers, operating in the 2 to 3 micron range. A 10MW hydrogen fuel cell provided power to a homopolar fast discharge generator, and the laser was propagated by the interaction of a particle-accelerated beam with a static electric field, without the need for lasers. Lasers of this type were used by the Colonial Marines because the wavelength could be tuned to the local atmosphere, and a reactive tuning facility could also tune the beam on the fly to adjust to enemy countermeasures such as smoke. The weapons could be used in two modes, dazzle or pulsed. Dazzle mode fired a continuous beam at a low output energy of only 20 to 50 kilowatts, and was used to burn out enemy optical and infrared sensors or to directly blind infantry or pilots. Pulsed mode fired at full power, causing significant damage through mechanical effects as the beam superheated the target area. This meant it could easily penetrate infantry armor or engage airborne craft or missiles with a theoretical effective range of 3 kilometers, but this could be extremely reduced by local atmospheric conditions. The most recent variant of the vehicle, the M577A3, mounted a pair of particle beam cannons, charged by a 20 mega-electron-volt turbo alternator. These sophisticated weapons were only made possible at this scale due to the Martin Continental micro-magneto-hydrodynamic turbine that generated the 20 megawatts of electrical power the weapons required. The system contained enough turbine fuel to fire the weapons for up to 50 seconds, with a 300 kg deuterium tank providing particle beam mass. Effective range against lightly armoured targets was approximately 3 kilometers, but at longer ranges the beams could disrupt unshielded electronics. No matter which variant was in use, all weapons were fully stabilized and could be elevated and depressed between 85 and -7 degrees, and hydraulic rams on either side of the turret could tilt it by an additional 15 degrees. Target acquisition and weapons control could be done from either the Tactical Operations Center or the Gunner's Station, but these functions could also be handled by an automatic targeting system, reducing crew workload. The M577 earned its place at the heart of the United States Colonial Marines deployment strategy, providing them with a mobile and heavily armed armoured personnel carrier, capable of transporting and protecting its passengers on even the harshest worlds of settled space. You can support Spacedock by joining our Patreon, where you can get our Spacefighter design reference book. Alternatively, you can support us directly through YouTube by giving us super thanks or by becoming a channel member. Thanks to our supporters, and thank you for watching.